Please be seated. My dear brothers and sisters in the Lord, welcome to the Cathedral of the Holy Cross, and a very special welcome to our new Catholics who will be received into the Church tonight through baptism or profession of faith. We gather for the most solemn liturgy of the year. Here, the mystery of Easter is expressed by such powerful symbols that speak to us about spiritual realities. The Church uses the most basic elements of fire and water, which are blessed during the Easter Vigil. Fire, which betokens light and warmth, is one of humanity's primal symbols. Darkness suggests the unknown, danger, and sin. During the two great holy nights of the church year, Christmas and Easter, the light that illumines the darkness is a sign of our encounter with God, who has come into our world despite whatever obstacles might prevent his coming. We waited in a darkened church for the Easter fire to be struck. It is the light of Christ. Thanks be to God. The night serves a purpose, allowing us to appreciate what the fire does. That light that enables us to see, to find our way. It warms us, it gladdens us. The quivering flame is an image of the mystery of life itself. The candles in the church celebrate the resurrection, but also give us a glimpse of that great feast of light at Jesus' return in glory at the end of time, where the Lord urges us to be like servants waiting for the Master's return, with our loins girded and torches in our hands. And woe to us if we fail to have enough oil for our lamps for the wedding feast. Each of us, in our own baptism, was given a candle, as our new catechumens will receive tonight. We have been told to keep the candle burning brightly by a life of faith and service. It is the light of Christ. The second symbol is the water which we bless in this Eucharist. Water is essential for life. It cleanses and revives. The Easter Vigil tells us that it's more precious than the water that we receive from the earth is the water that sprung from Jesus' side. The cross is Jesus' radical self-giving. He holds nothing back, but rather pours himself out totally for us. The cross is the wellspring of that pure self-surrender, of self-giving love. In baptism, this spring flows from Christ's cross through the entire church like a mighty stream that gladdens the city of God. We bathe in the stream and we are reborn. It transforms the wilderness of the world into a fruitful oasis. And the joy of Easter finds its expression in song. The Alleluia that was suppressed during the Lenten season of penance resurfaces to gladden our hearts because sin and death, our two greatest enemies, have been conquered. Our Redeemer lives, and every tear has been wiped away. Today we stand before a tomb that has no epitaph. It's a tomb that is empty and obsolete. A tomb that was borrowed from Joseph of Arimathea. Jesus had been born in a stable because there was no room in the inn. He tells us that although the birds of the air have their nests and the foxes have their dens, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Even in death, Jesus does not have a tomb of his own. But today we rejoice that that borrowed tomb is empty. Today's gospel describes for us what happened early Easter morning when Mary Magdalene and the holy women went to the tomb we now call the Holy Sepulchre. The announcement that Jesus is alive changes everything. It changes us. It gives us hope where without the resurrection there would be despair. It gives us faith and light. It replaces our sorrow with joy. That joy in the life of Jesus is present in the lives of his disciples when they strive to practice the works of mercy, to care for one another, to forgive wrongs, to build a civilization of love in response to Jesus' command and example. The fact that the tomb is empty energizes those first disciples in the gospel. And that's only the beginning, because after discovering that the tomb is empty, for 40 days there were apparitions of the risen Lord who returns like the good shepherd, gathering the scattered, to assure us that he is with us always. He will be present in all times and all places, where 2 or 3 are gathered in his name, where his sacraments are celebrated, or where the gospel is proclaimed. We have a saying, seeing is believing. But for most of us, I think it's the other way around. As we believe in the risen Christ, we begin to see him active in our lives, helping us, comforting us, guiding us. As we believe in the risen Christ, we begin to see him in others. My faith in the resurrection of Christ gives me comfort in knowing that I am never alone, that the Lord is always with me. My faith in the risen Christ makes me more willing to spend time with him in prayer. The resurrection is not just a belief that we pull out at Easter or when there's a funeral. It's a whole way of life, a life that begins with our baptism and is sustained by the community of faith when we gather with the risen Christ on the day of his resurrection each Sunday. It's a way of life in which we try to keep ourselves always aware of his presence in us, in all that we say and do throughout the week. Today, we are reminded of the truth that is most basic to our faith. Today, we rededicate ourselves to living that faith in union with the risen Lord, so that we may be witnesses in the world that Christ is not to be sought among the dead. The tomb is empty. He is alive. His love is real. The resurrection is not a bare fact, a piece of data, something you can take or leave. The resurrection is the event without parallel. It's a fact that demands change, calls for conversion of heart. The resurrection is the event of events, the defining center of history. To know Jesus, to know his love, is a call to lead a better life, to treat each other with greater respect and concern. To know Jesus' resurrection is to begin to understand that we too will live forever. That puts everything else in perspective. In the light of the resurrection, our lives must change. We must move beyond the materialism and the individualism of our culture and embrace our mission to be witnesses of the good news and to make God's kingdom more visible by the way that we love, forgive, and serve each other, especially the poor and those suffering in our midst. The resurrection assures us that there is life beyond the cross. There is meaning in suffering, and that love is stronger than death. If Easter is about being surprised by joy, it's also about sharing the good news and the joy that our Redeemer lives. Mary Magdalene ran to tell the people that he is alive. Let us not drag our feet as we rush to share the good news. Happy Easter.